Hey, what is up, guys? This is Josh the Gamer here, coming at you with a brand new video. So today we are going to be starting on a new Quorum game programming tutorial, and this tutorial is going to be about drawing shapes inside of the game. Now, as of right now, if we run our game, just give it a moment to build and run. Sometimes, depending on your machine, it takes a little bit. But as of right now, we should have a blank screen for our game right now. Now, I didn't show you this in the last tutorial because the last tutorial, what we did was we pretty much just looked at the anatomy of a game class. However, at the beginning of this tutorial, I'm just going to show you that this is what our screen looks like right now. So, right now with nothing, that's pretty much what it looks like. Now, in order to draw a shape, we need to use something that's called a drawable. Now, a drawable is used for drawing things like shapes and images, for like textures or that kind of stuff. So, let's first import the drawable class. Underneath use libraries.game.game, do use libraries.game.graphics.drawable. So now, the next thing we need to do is inside of our main class, we need to declare a drawable object. So let's go ahead and do that. Do drawable, and then we're just going to call it D for simplicity. Now, doing single letters for variable or object names are not recommended. I'm just doing it for simplicity and tutorial purposes. When you're actually creating drawable objects or variables, or any kind of object for that matter, inside of an actual program, make sure that it has a name that makes sense and that actually has meaning for what it actually is. Anyway, let's go ahead and now we need to actually draw a shape. So we're going to go ahead and do some more drawables. Drawable C, drawable B, and drawable A. I don't think we'll need 4, but we can just have 4 because why the hell not? Okay. Now, inside of our create game action, let's go ahead and do a D:, and then this autocomplete comes up. As you can see, it has all these different methods that are inherited from such as the class of item 2D. Item 2D has all these different classes in it, and compare comes from the object class, which is the mother, pretty much the mother of all classes. But that's not for this video. Anyway, so pretty much what we want is we want to find the load methods. Here we go. So as you can see, we have all kinds of different load methods. We can load a file, a texture region. We can use circle, rectangle, triangle, line. That kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and start with a circle. So load filled circle, and then inside the parameters, we're going to go ahead and say we want it to be a radius of 100. Alright, so now, as of right now, the positioning of our drawable on the screen is going to be at 0, 0, which is going to be at the bottom left of the screen. So, in order to see that on the screen, what we need to do is we need to do we need to call the add method from the game class. So let's just type add with a capital A. We don't want two capital D's, we want two lowercase d's. And then inside parentheses, put the object name. So now that we have that done, we can go ahead and hit run, and we should see a circle at coordinates 0, 0. And there we go, there's our circle. However, it looks a bit big, but hey, whatever, it's a good demonstration. Now, as you can see, the corner of the screen doesn't have anything in it, or so it would appear. Essentially, when you're doing a drawable, it has kind of like an invisible square or rectangle around it. So wherever you set the position of the drawable, the invisible square, like the bottom left corner of the invisible square that's surrounding it, is where is going to be where you set the coordinates at. So that's kind of a little thing to watch out for. Now, the next thing we can do is we can also load in a rectangle. So let's go ahead and do C:, load filled rectangle. And now we need to specify the width and the height. So in this case, I'm going to do a width of 100 and a height of 50. Now, we do not want this to overlap with our circle. So let's go ahead and do a C:. We want to do a set position. Now, there are two set position methods. There's one for X, one for Y, one for X, Y. Yeah, there's one for X and Y, and then there's one for X, Y, and Z. Now, since we're doing 2D at the moment, we want just X and Y, because X, Y, and Z is for 3D, and we are not there yet. So, set position, we're going to say, let's say around, let's just say an X position of 0, and then a Y position of 150. Let's go ahead and save and run it. Actually, wait, we don't want to run it right now, because as you can see here, the rectangle doesn't show up. Why? Simply because we haven't added it to the screen yet. So add C. Save it, run it. Now, as you can kind of see, there is the rectangle. However, we can change this. Let's change it to a height of 250. Or, yeah, a Y position of 250. That way, we should be able to see the entire rectangle, and so they don't overlap. Yep, there we go. There's our rectangle. We have it a length of 100 and a height of 50. Pretty cool. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to draw a triangle onto the screen. So let's go ahead and do a B:, load filled triangle. Now this is going to take a lot of parameters. This is going to take the X and Y position of the first point, the X and Y position of the second point, and the X and Y position of the third point. So let's go ahead and try to actually make a equilateral triangle. So first things first, we want our point to be at a X of 0. so pretty much what we're doing is we're actually defining how many pixels we want for our triangle. So let's go ahead and do first point's at 0, 0. Next point we're gonna say is 0 or is no 25 at an x of 25 and a height of 50. And then the third point is at an x is at a x of 50 and a height of 0, or at a y of 0. So now we have our 3 points defined. However, we want to make sure that we have our triangle above our rectangle so we can actually see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and do a B set position, and then we want to do a 0, 350. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to save it. I keep hitting run when I don't want to run it because we need to add it to the screen first. So we need to do add B, save it, now run it. And we should see a equilateral triangle above our rectangle. And yes, we do. We see a nice equilateral triangle. Now, let me tell you exactly... Now, let me kind of clear up how the triangle coordinates will work. Pretty much what we're doing is we are specifying coordinates within that invisible rectangle or invisible square that I told you guys about that is automatically put in for the drawables. So inside of that, the first point is at 0, 0 inside of that invisible square. The second point is at 25, 50. And then the final point is at 50, 0. And then now we need to set the now we set the position of the triangle itself inside of the game canvas, I guess you could call it. And we added it to the screen, and there it is. So you have two different coordinate planes that you're working with when it comes to a triangle, and it does get kind of confusing, I will admit that. But as long as you kind of understand the concept of that invisible box, you should be able to create triangles no problem. So now our last thing for this drawing tutorial is the line. So A, load, filled, or we need to load a line. Alright. So actually, you know what? Let's not load a line because a line is not something you're going to be using necessarily all the time. So it's kind of, you know, not 100% necessary. I may show you guys at a later date how to do it, but right now we don't really need it. So we're just going to stick with the circle, rectangle, and triangle. However, there's also another thing you can do with drawables when you're doing shapes like circle, rectangle, and triangle. You can actually set the colors. Now, how do you do that? Well, first off, we need to import the color class, so let's go ahead and do that. Use libraries.game.graphics.color. Now we need a color object, so I'm just going to call it color because we already have a C declared for a drawable. And now what we need to do here is, in order to set the color of a drawable, there's an extra parameter added to these load, filled, whatever methods. So we're going to go ahead and do a comma, and then color colon. And now, of course, for some odd reason, in Quorum, right now, the colors do not show up in the they do not show up in the autocomplete. So what we may want to do here is we can go into the color.quorum class. We need to go. Okay, so it's not going to let me go into that class, but we're just going to do color red. Alright, now that will make the circle red. Now inside of our load filled rectangle, we're going to do color blue. Or no, we're going to do white. Alright, now for our triangle, we're going to do color blue. Now make sure you call those like actions. Why? Because there are actions inside the color class called red, white, and blue, and those will return that will return a color. So then, it'll return a color object with that color stored in it. So let's go ahead and run it. And then once we see our screen, as you can see, our triangle is blue, our rectangle is white, and our circle is red. So that will pretty much do it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you guys learned a little something, and we will see you all in the next tutorial.